such as fighting terrorism. President-elect Trump also adding that he'd be willing to leave current sanctions in place, quote, for a period of time.
Earlier this week, the president-elect and his attorneys laid out a plan to put aside any conflicts of interest, but a government watchdog says they just do not go far enough. Christina Leshy is following the story for us.
Christy, Victor, Trump's plans to address conflicts has several parts. One, his sons will run the business. Two, they won't strike any new foreign deals. And three, new U.S. deals will need to be vetted by an ethics lawyer. But all of that fails the ethics test, according to the Office of Government Ethics. It slammed the plan this week. The reason? Trump is still keeping ownership.
Actually run my business and run government at the same time.
Donald Trump resigning from his business empire, but not selling it. Instead, he'll transfer control to his sons.
Don and Eric are going to be running the company.
Legal experts say the plan falls short.
He has ownership interest in the businesses. The profits from the businesses go to him, and all of the conflicts of interest remain intact.
Intact because Trump will still know what his holdings are, and that could impact the decisions he makes as president. The Office of Government Ethics slammed Trump's plan.
Stepping back from running his positions is meaningless from a conflicts of interest perspective.
For months, experts have been calling on Trump to sell his assets and put them in a blind trust. But Trump's attorney says that wouldn't work.
You cannot have a totally blind trust with operating businesses. President Trump can't unknow he owns Trump Tower.
Instead, the Trump Organization is pledging it won't do any new deals in foreign countries, and any domestic deals that could raise eyebrows will be vetted by a newly appointed ethics officer. Trump's sons, Don Jr. and Eric, will run the business, along with Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg, who's been there since the 1980s, even appearing on The Apprentice.
I felt that Andy losing his lines of communication was a very serious matter.
Trump's relationship to all of them creates its own issues.
Everyone is going to know that when they're doing business with Eric or Don Jr., they're doing business with the president.
He risks losing the trust of all of the people of the United States who are counting on him to be able to separate himself from his business interests.
Trump isn't exactly turning his back on his business either. He'll still receive profit and loss reports on the company as a whole, even as his sons run the day-to-day operations.
And I hope at the end of 8 years I'll come back and I'll say, oh, you did a good job. Otherwise, if they do a bad job, I'll say, you're fired. Goodbye, everybody.
Well, Trump's team and his lawyers say forcing him to divest is unreasonable, but the Federal Office of Government Ethics doesn't think so. The head of the agency said he wished Trump's legal team consulted him because the agency would have reassured them presidential nominees in every administration agree to sell assets all the time. Victor, Christy?
All righty, Christina Leshy, thank you so much. Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Paige Pate to walk us through this. So help us understand, give us some clarity on the legal spectrum of this. What is the responsibility of President-elect Trump when he's dealing with both of these entities?
We've never had a situation where the president walks into office more concerned about what's illegal or legal versus what's ethical or not. There are not really any clear laws that prohibit Trump from being engaged in business while he's president. There's a federal law, but it does not cover the president or the vice president. There's a constitutional provision, but it's really fuzzy as to whether or not it prevents somebody like a President Trump from being engaged in private business. Now, it's clear he can't do anything to receive any benefits or get business from a foreign country, but it really doesn't address private business interests. So there's no clear law that prohibits him from doing what he's doing.
Is there any way to ensure that he doesn't personally profit from any of the decisions he makes?
I think the only way to do that is to have Congress address this proactively. Go in, pass a law, make it clear that the conflict of interest laws that currently govern almost everybody else in the executive branch also covers a President Trump, because right now that law is not on the books.
Okay, Elizabeth Warren had something to say about this during a hearing with Ben Carson this week. Let's listen.
The problem is that you can't assure us that HUD money, not of $10 varieties, but of multi-million-dollar varieties, will not end up in the president-elect's pockets. And the reason you can't assure us of that is because the president-elect is hiding his family's business interests from you, from me, from the rest of America.
Is there validity to the allegation she's making, and how easy would it be to hide assets?
There's a lot of validity to what she's saying, and I think President Trump could avoid all this by taking his assets, liquidating them, putting them into a blind trust. That is what every president in modern history has done. But from Trump's standpoint, and I guess elections have consequences, he's coming into office with the idea that if it's legal, I'm going to do it. And so that's the problem.
Walter Schwab, director of the Office of Government Ethics, gave a speech at Brookings Institute this week, and here's what he said, talking about imploring, apparently, the president-elect to look at sacrifice. Let's listen.
As we all know, one of the great things about America is its system for preventing public corruption. The president-elect must show those in government and those coming into government after his inauguration that ethics matters.
Is the